This video is sponsored by Mel Chemistry, an awesome monthly subscription with fun, educational, and safe experiments for kids and parents to do at home. It comes with everything you need to get started, plus 90 experiments on over 30 chemistry topics delivered right to your door. Click the link below to get 25% off your first month, and make sure you stay tuned for a chance to win a free subscription at the end of the video.
In my last video, I paid a visit to the Minneapolis Institute of Art for some background and history on the historical methods of making paint. Produced an initial trial of tempera paint myself, and made the paintbrushes I'll eventually need for my painting. Now, I'm going to produce a variety of pigments, some sourced naturally, and some produced chemically, and use them to produce all of my own oil paints, and then try them out myself. But first, I got a little more information from Rita on some historical suggestions of how to produce paints. Can you talk about how oil paint is actually made?
Oil paint these days is very complicated. So basically you have your pigment and drying oil. Traditionally, three types of drying oils were most commonly used: linseed oil, poppy seed oil, and walnut oil. They all have different properties. Today in modern paint manufacture, there are many more things added to paint. There's dryers, dilutants. A lot of it is not known to us and kept by the manufacturer.
So it's mostly the longer working time that made oil paint become more popular than tempera?
That was a big part of it. If you think about oil paint, you can create different surfaces. You can create more texture. It can be more thickly applied. You can work wet into wet. You can change your composition. You can work on top of your composition. So with oil paintings, we see a lot of artist changes, for example, in the paintings themselves. Here, everything had to be thought out and designed beforehand, just because you don't have that kind of flexibility. So we're now in the 17th century, and this is a really good example of the handling of oil paint differs from that of tempera paint. A very famous painting by Rembrandt, a real highlight of our collection, but if you look closely, you can see how thick the paint layers are. He is applying it with a brush, maybe stiffer brushes, perhaps almost like a palette knife. So he's layering it to create this beautiful, beautiful texture. So he's able to rework the composition again and again and again and add to it.
I've pressed a variety of different plant oils so far, but linseed oil tended to be the most popular of them because of its faster drying time. I grew my own flax last year and previously used some of the linseed oil from it as a wood finish. But now I can also use that as a base for my paint. Now, I just need some pigments.
Some of the kind of cheaper materials available were different earth colors. A lot of browns, kind of greenish tones. Those would be probably painted with earth colors.
First up, some earth tones. Well, in Arizona a few years ago, I collected some of its iconic red soil. A simple strain and wash. And I should have a decent red ochre pigment. For yellow, I dug around and found the yellowest local soil I could.
Interesting color.
And then also strained and washed it. Then, while in England this spring, I snagged a few loose chunks of white chalk from the iconic cliffs of Dover. Which I should be able to crush up to make a nice white pigment. Lastly, for black, I collected lamp soot produced from burning oil lamp, yielding the common pigment lamp black. Now to make some more difficult pigments.
The pigments came from naturally occurring minerals and ores, such as this one. So here we have an example of malachite, and here we have an example of azurite. Early Italian Renaissance artists had a very limited palette. So there's only a few pigments they could use for blue colors, for example, azurite as well as ultramarine. And ultramarine was a really expensive pigment. It was made from lapis lazuli, which is a semi-precious stone. Ultramarine actually means from across the sea. So it came from far away and was very expensive. So here, for example, the blue robe of the Virgin is probably azurite.
I haven't been able to collect malachite or lapis lazuli. However, I have collected the necessary ingredients to synthetically reproduce them. We'll start with ultramarine, which I've previously spent a large amount of time trying to reproduce, taking over 16 attempts, which ended up yielding only a few small pieces of it. but now I've been able to upgrade to much better tools and have a bit more experience with the chemistry. So let's try and make a big batch. After baking in the kiln, any leftover sulfur can be burned off by just exposing it to the air. Then I'll strain out the large chunks and then wash the compound, yielding a really nice dark blue color. Next up, for a green pigment, compound often involved in that is copper, and previously I collected some copper ore. This is Carissa, which has a nice green color. It's not as green as other pure ores such as malachite, which is what I was really hoping to get. However, from this you can actually turn it into the same chemical as malachite, which is what I'm going to do. And when I previously extracted copper from this, I went through half the process for that already, which is dissolving the ore in sulfuric acid. So I have that solution here. A bunch of impurities are all in this solution. Baja blast for later. But at the bottom, it started to crystallize. That should be relatively pure copper sulfate. So I'm going to scrape off those crystals, dissolve it into some water, and then react it with soda ash, and that will produce copper carbonate, which is the same compound as malachite and makes a pretty decent pigment. So pretty.
Weird, it's turning green, but in the camera it's blue.
Yeah, it's very faint.
Yeah.
Here's the end result, basic copper carbonate, which is the same compound as malachite, although there is a very noticeable difference in color. So there's some explanation for that I do not know. Now with 6 different pigments, I just need to mix them together in the linseed oil. But first, a word from our sponsor. I had my nieces and nephews over the other day, and thanks to today's sponsor of Melt Chemistry, I was able to entertain them with some fun and educational science experiments.
Yep, there we go.
You can get up to 3 experiments a month delivered right to your door for hours of fun and educational activity you can do with your own kids, nieces, or nephews. And stay tuned at the end of the video for your chance to win a free subscription. With the oil and now 6 different pigments, I should have everything for my paints. I dried and ran the green and blue pigments through some ball mills to break them up into a finer powder. Interesting, the copper carbonate changed color fairly significantly as it dried. So I have carbon black, basic copper carbonate, ultramarine, red ochre, and yellow ochre. I'm just gonna mix it in with some linseed or flaxseed oil and make some paints. Dirt going to waste. And done. 6 different paints, all set, ready for the next masterpiece. Got some little tubes for you guys too. I'm gonna split these colors between all of our patrons at $75 or more. So if you want a full palette, you'll have to connect with each other. Now with everything together, it's time to channel my inner Bob Ross and make my own masterpiece. Hello, I'm Andy. Certainly glad you could join us today. It's a fantastic day here, and I hope it is wherever you are. You ready to make a fantastic little painting? If this is your first time with us, let me extend a personal invitation for you to drag out your paints and paint along with us. Add some happy little clouds. It's gonna be fall. Why not? Early fall. There's still a bit of green in there. Just gotta beat the devil out of it. This is the fun part. Alright, I'm gonna make a makeshift palette brush out of leftover tin.
You just ruined that mountain.
It's a happy little accident, Dan. They're always happy little accidents. All right, so I'm starting to lose my patience, and painting's supposed to be fun. Because if you aren't having fun, why are you doing it? So I'm gonna stop now. This has been a little challenging. I don't know if it's the paint, or the paintbrushes, or the artist, probably the artist, but yeah, it's all right. I'm gonna call it done. Lastly, for some expert assessment, I had Bob and Rita give me their opinion on my paints. So I have my completed paintbrushes and 6 different paints that I made. Since I've put them in the tube, their consistency has changed. Some of them are pretty thick.
So what did you mix it with?
Basically just linseed oil.
Very nice.
That's a good white.
Oh, that's nice. That's a nice.
Are you sure it's ultramarine?
Are we gonna make happy trees?
Yeah.
Okay. I like this one. This one looks good.
That one looks supple. Yeah. This is a little grainy, but you know, some people might be into that. This is clumping a bit, but maybe if you add a friend, you give it an assist.
You are making like a painting. Wow.
This is nice. It's got a little bit of that grit that the green had.
Oh, this is a beautiful one.
That's really nice.
Handles full.
Looks like a fine mustard.
This is very zen.
This is the part where your audience watches paint dry.
This is.
I don't know what that is.
So what was the green? What did you use?
Basic copper carbonate.
Yeah, there's something really funny about how it. It's not.
Yeah, it didn't want
So
to
how would
mix.
you account for that? Is it that
You're
the
asking
oil?
me?
Yeah, totally.
Again.
Get out your microscope.
Yes, we should. Maybe it wasn't. Did you grind it yourself? Maybe
Yeah.
it wasn't finely ground.
Might be it.
I think the white and then this
I love this
came out
one.
really well.
This is a 10
The
for me.
consistency and the intensity of them are both really nice. This one's a little liquidy, but if it was mixed with something else, then it's a beautiful color, actually. This one, I'm not so sure about.
Yeah, not
It's
my
not really
favorite
holding together. This one came out.
Should we see how this ages? Or see, you know what? In 5 years from now, bring your painting in and we'll take a look.
Thank you to Mia and Mac for helping me put this masterpiece together, and thank you to the contributions of viewers like you. Thanks again to Milk Chemistry for sponsoring this video. Here were the winners for our last drawing we did. Send us your email and we'll hook you up with your free 6-month subscription. Now here's your next chance to win your own free 6-month subscription to Milk Chemistry. Just answer this question in the comments. The Mona Lisa is one of the most famous paintings in the world. But did you know it's not actually painted on canvas? What is the Mona Lisa painted on? In a couple weeks, we'll do a random drawing to select 3 lucky winners. If you are too eager to wait to see if you won, click the link below to get 25% off your first subscription to Melt Chemistry. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and check out other content we have covering a wide variety of topics. Also, if you've enjoyed these series, consider supporting us on Patreon. We are largely a fan-funded channel and depend on the support of our viewers in order to keep our series going. Thanks for watching.